Hello, everyone. Could you just let me know that you can hear me and see me? Okay, dubious pleasure, but if somebody can just put a yes down to say hi, everything's good, and we will get started. All good? Still waiting? Somebody can just post a comment to say it's all okay. That's fine. Sorry, I just got lots of yeses there, but I couldn't see them. That's great then. I will get started. Two things. First of all, just a bit of housekeeping. If you can try to keep the questions relevant, you can ask them actually as I'm talking, which will hopefully be short, 20, 25 minutes. Or obviously you can ask them when I'm actually going into the question response, which comes afterwards. So both are absolutely fine. Do, like I say, try to keep them relevant. Although I have to say this is such a vast topic that, forgive me, my own relevance might be fairly tangential at points on this. There's a few digressions that I think are really worth making for this. Very quick, 30 seconds on me, which is, don't know whether I said, my name is Mark. I've been a teacher of various types for, I think, 32 years now. So hopefully I know something. Must have picked up something along the way. And I've worked various different ones at the moment. Well, I used to work as a director of studies. Then I ran a department of a language training company. And I work a lot now for the Ministry of Defence. And which is good fun as well. And I enjoy very much my teacher training, and this is of which this is part of it. I think that's sufficient. Hi Tracy, sorry if there's a bit of an echo. Not sure what I can do from that. Good to see where you're all from. Lots from South Africa that I can see. California, Holland. Hi. Right, I hope the weather is as nice there as it is here. Here it's a bit too hot. I'm a bit too overweight and pink for this kind of weather. It's about 29 degrees, which for some of you is probably fairly cool, but not here. Okay, let's get on then. So let me just jump to the first one. As you know, we're talking here about we're talking about questions in class, and these come down to three particular ones that we're looking at: eliciting, concept checking, and instruction checking. Now, the second two of those, concept checking, just so as you know, we call it CCQs, which I'll probably refer to, and instructions, which we don't talk about so much, ICQs. You will see these coming up quite a lot. So a couple of the first acronyms for you. And whatever you learn today, it's a funny one, this, because some of you might have some experience of teaching, in which case you might be thinking, come on, tell me something new. And for some people, this is a real eye-opener as well, because it's something that distinguishes TEFL teaching from other kinds of teaching, and the precise methodologies that we have for this. Not too precise, you don't need to worry too much about this. So if you take home one thing from what we're going to do today, take away the difference between eliciting and concept checking. I say this because it comes up in all three of the assignments. Some of you will have done one, maybe two of the assignments already, but it comes up all the time. And what kind of separates the sheep from the goats is people who get the difference and the people who don't. It's one of the biggest distinctions we've got. So we'll take this from the start. Eliciting, as a very quick definition, is how you get the students to come up with the word, the grammar, the target language, whatever it may be. You are trying to get it up. You're trying to get it out of them. You are not, I repeat, not telling them what it is. Concept checking comes when that target language, so say a particular word, a particular item of lexis, has come out as an answer from the students, and then you are checking to make sure that everybody in the class understands. So big difference between the two. Take that away if you get nothing else from this, and I'm sure you'll get plenty. I hope anyway. Okay, so that is the distinction that we're looking at today. Why do we use these? I'll just jump onto the next slide now. Techniques, as it says here, we use to prompt students to come up with information rather than giving it to them. And TEFL is largely based around this idea. We are empowering the students to do the work. And surprise, surprise, this takes more preparation than doing it in other ways. It is the antithesis of explanation and lecturing students. We want our students to come back. We want them to enjoy what they do. We want them to take responsibility for their learning, and this elicitation and concept checking is the way that we do this. So why do we use it? As it says here, brainstorming topics is well, part of it. That comes in particular, and again you'll see this when you look down your stages of lessons. This comes very much in sort of like in the warmer part. So you have a topic. If you're going to introduce a piece of grammar, you of course use a particular topic. You choose the topic in order to present this. So this comes in the warmer. The lovely expression we have for this, activating schemata. And this is a big thing that we'll come back to. It's the idea of bringing out what they already know. Okay. And although it says here to produce the target language and the vocabulary, what you don't do in here is try to get the target language. It may emerge because somebody may know it anyway, but you're not trying to get them to produce the target language in the warmer. You're trying to get them to bring out the language around it and the vocabulary around it. So when you're going in, yes, you know the parameters on which they're working. Okay, I'll jump forward. Okay, so I've already said a little bit about this. Why is eliciting so important in the EFL class? And above all else, this idea, students take a more active role in the learning process. That's a real big one for us. I think here things have changed since I started teaching. Things have changed greatly. If you look at the second one here, students bring their life experiences and language knowledge into the classroom. Now, when I started teaching, it was still quite possible to be teaching maybe a group who all came from a very similar background, who had maybe all stuck together, who had all learned the same things. And so basically, when you went into a classroom, you would know pretty much exactly what they knew and what they didn't know. That is no longer the case for loads of reasons, sort of geographical mobility, mixing up. Social media is a huge one for this. And what it means is that people, of course, will now come into a classroom with totally different backgrounds. They may have a similar level, but that difference of background means that maybe they've got plenty more language. Now, they might have it from all sorts of ways. They might have it from gaming, from sports commentaries. One that used to be common when I was first teaching was song lyrics. Of course, nowadays they might have gone onto a website and picked up done gap fills with song lyrics and all the wonderful things that you can do now, the opportunities you have as a teacher as well. So it comes from everywhere. And that means very much that you have a situation where some people might get something, some people may be completely in the dark about it, despite the fact that two or 30 students or 15 students may be at a similar level. They'll all have different approaches to this. And so what your responsibility is, in order to get the basis to move forward to whatever the target language may be, you've got to make sure that everybody's in the same place, and then they're in the same place afterwards. So that means that you're using eliciting, and you're using maybe your students who know this better in order to help the students who don't know it to bring them up. And then with concept checking, of course, you can be bringing forward the students who maybe knew less, and you're bringing that and making sure that you've confirmed that they have that understanding as well. So it's a great thing to eliciting and concept checking are both bringing together everybody, so everybody is, so to speak, on the same page, and everybody's got the knowledge that you need them to have. That is your aim for the end of that exercise, that stage, and the lesson entirely. So as it says, sorry, I'm just jumping ahead here with what I was going to say. yes, I suppose that covers using it as a foundation. So I'll jump forward myself here. So we'll start with eliciting here. So pictures, role play, description, synonyms, any of those. We'll just have a quick look at what some of them mean here in terms of eliciting. So as we've established, eliciting is something new, a new piece of language for your class, of which probably some of your students will know. So there's a couple of considerations here, and pictures is one of them. Now, obviously, different items of language benefit more from different forms of elicitation. You would never want to try to use the same method to introduce, say, 10 or 12 different vocab items, for instance. As you can imagine, they're all going to be zoned out long before the end of that. So you have to mix it up. But think about different ones that you might use. We're going to use a picture shortly anyway. Why would a picture be great? A picture might be great for just something simple where you've got a word and you want a translation, but of course you don't want them to use a translation. So if you've got policeman, well, hold up a picture. That will do it pretty well, won't it, in general? And that gives you efficiency as well. If you're going to do 10 or 12 different pre-teaching prior to their actually doing prior to them doing a reading or a listening or something like that, some of those words or phrases, I should point that one out as well, you probably need to just get down. If you can do it in 10 seconds, great, boom, and on to the next one. And then you spend longer on other ones if you need to. Role play, a very involved one, and a role play often suggests two people. You can do it yourself as well. You can, so a role play might be great for, say, an emotion or something like that. So obviously angry, and you're wagging your finger and raising your voice with hopefully a twinkle in your eye to make sure that they understand that's what the word means. Description. Oh, this can be an awful lot of things, but it's a great one here. Description, which can also be definition in different ways. But a description. Oh, look at this word. This word means, and on you go. And you're getting words back, and all the time you're responding to what they have to say as well. Synonyms is fantastic. Really, really useful, and not just synonyms, but also antonyms as well. In other words, a synonym obviously is a word that is very similar to another word, has a very similar meaning. An antonym has an opposite meaning. So an antonym, again, brilliant for things like adjectives as well. Really works well for this. Okay, those are just a few. I sort of just thought about a few others here. Drawing is a great one. If you are prepared to humiliate yourself, if you have absolutely no talent in this area whatsoever. Gap fill is great as well. If you're describing, say, a morning routine, as you in fact have to do, I think in assignment A, this comes into it. So what about, okay, I wake up, my teeth, fine. So they get the idea. Then you've got somebody's going to come up with brush. Before that, I get, what's the single word? What's the dependent preposition? I get up. All of these work really, really well. And it gives you the opportunity to pick out the people who are doing the best. And then again, concept checking afterwards. The reason for concept checking here, although we're going to look at this a little bit more in a second, but the reason that we do concept checking as well is that quite often you come up with something, you've got one student, right, bang, who gives you the answer. Fantastic. And it's so tempting a lot of the time to think, okay, I've got the answer, especially if you've struggled a little bit to give the answer, to go, okay, right, I've got the answer, let's move on to the next one. And what that actually means, of course, is that your bright spark has given you the answer, and there may be 14 people there who have somewhere between a little bit of an idea and absolutely no clue whatsoever. Concept checking is the great way of coming back in and saying, yeah, great. Thank you. Fran has just put down realia as well. Another brilliant idea. Bring the thing in, or bring in something, or bring in a good representation of the thing as well. Again, works well with pencil and not so well with elephant. So anyway, those are all those are all ideas. You will have other ideas as well. Happy for you to chuck them down as well if you've got any others beyond what I've got. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this picture. And as you can see, here is the dialogue that comes around eliciting here as well. She's smiling, so she's happy. She's very happy. Another word for very happy, excited. And now look at this nice other little bit as well, because this is actually where it heads into the concept checking, really. What other things might I be excited about? So you're actually heading there, but from one thing to another. You've got the word, and then you're moving on. So great, somebody comes up with a brilliant example. You won the lottery. Notice here as well, this last bit as well. Now, this is something that I kind of looked at and I questioned, and I thought it's okay, but I'm going to illuminate it anyway as much as I can, because I think it's something that is a familiar mistake, and it's something that was always worth being aware of. The teacher then says, that's a good example. I would be very excited if I had won the lottery. Now, obviously, if you're teaching a word like excited, you're teaching an elementary class at the lower intermediate, possibly, but really probably a decent level elementary class. And then you've used a mixed conditional. I would be very excited, second conditional, if I had won the lottery, third conditional. So a mixed conditional there. Hang on, but an elementary class hasn't done a mixed conditional or a third conditional, very likely hasn't done a first conditional. So always be aware of the risk of using language that is above their level to explain a word that is their level in the first place. You have got to keep it really, really simple. On the other hand, you could also argue here that they're going to understand this, aren't they? You've got excited, lottery, and possibly won as well. In fact, the students has come up with one. Given that, do they need to worry too much about the niceties of the grammatical structure at that point? No, you might be okay. So you might say, okay, that's fine, that's all. But I do think it's something that's worth always looking at, particularly in preparation for the work that you're doing. Really think about the language that you use to present this. This is such a common thing. This comes up in it's in assignments A and C. And something that you see a great deal of is people using language that is extremely elevated in order to present something that is, comparatively speaking, quite simple. Moving away from the assignments, as somebody, I used, not so much now, but I used to do a lot of observation of lessons, particularly as director of studies and running a department. And one of the things that you saw that teachers did all the time was they hadn't really prepared that, they hadn't prepared the elicitation, they hadn't prepared the concept checking. So what then happened was that they'd come up with something spontaneously, it didn't work, and so then, and it's particularly because, of course, you've got somebody observing you as well, which is never, so I'm not saying that, they'd always do this, but it's just when you've got somebody watching you, it makes it worse. They would then try to do something more sophisticated. You think, okay, how do I explain this word? And of course, they'd come up with something that then uses higher level language and then higher level language. And eventually they really go around in circles, basically almost talking to themselves or talking to me as the observer, rather than bringing it down to the level of the students. So that takes a bit of preparation in order to think, okay, how am I going to do this, and how am I going to do this at the level of the students? It's a really, really big thing. And this will come up in concept checking as well. Things to remember when you do this. Your students don't know everything. And so when you're asking them things, as I said, there's also the idea, one of them knows it, doesn't mean that they all know it. You're also running a kind of constant diagnosis as well. Okay, what do they know? What do they need? You can't expect them to come up with everything. So try to limit your aims as well in terms of in the micro situation, get that single word out of them and then move on to the next one. Also remember, elicitation, you cannot elicit what is not there. And that means that sooner or later, there can be a time when you go, okay, look, Nobody knows this. Nobody's got a clue about this. Not that you might say that. I'll give you the actual word. You notice it's actually quite easy, much easier if some of you are teaching monolingual classes, and then you can hear the actual translation of the item going around the class as well quite quickly, which isn't ideal, but it shows that they're actually involved as well. So it's not a TEFL tragedy if that actually happens. Okay, providing sufficient context to guide the students. Now, if you've got a warmer, and if you're talking about a particular context and you're asking a particular question, you've got that because you've got the interest in the first place. And if you've got the interest, you'll get to the target language. And the last one, this one, there's a second set of these as well coming. Don't ask vague questions which are open to interpretation. Now, I have to say, actually, I think that's a statement which is a vague statement which is open to interpretation. And the reason I say that is that very, very easy. You've got a kind of sliding scale with this when you're asking these questions. Excuse me, it's hay fever. It's hot at the moment, which is very unusual in England, and the English body just doesn't respond to it very well. By this vagueness, you've got two competing ideas here. One is that if you're asking a question and you want a simple yes, no answer. Now, a yes, no answer is obviously really clear. There's no interpretation. The issue with that, of course, is that it tells you less about whether a person actually understands the item or not, because you've just given them a 50-50 chance. And of course, there's so much in maybe the way that you ask something that will tell somebody whether you're looking for a yes or no answer anyway. So they might be able to pick up from the tone of your voice what you're looking for and still give you the correct answer and have no idea about it whatsoever. So that's one end of the sliding scale, where you've got absolute precision, no openness to interpretation, but you've got less certainty that it's actually correct. You turn that around the other way, and the more precise that somebody can be, the more information that they can actually give you about something is great, but it doesn't really help everybody else in the class because they might not be clued into this as well. So there is a sliding scale between these two. I don't like it when it's just yes, no questions. But if you're asking kind of arcane information that maybe only one student likes, that only one student is interested in, from a topic that only one student is interested in, then you're losing it that way as well. So, and if they can't answer, as I said, raise the white flag, stop a listing, provide the target language. This is absolutely fine. And use the varied approaches as we saw before. The different approaches. Don't try to do 12 the same. One other thing I would say about this as well, because again, and it's something that I see, oddly enough, people write this in dialogues, but they also do it, is do not have an external monologue going on as well. You keep the language simple. So what you see a lot of is people coming up with expression, like the student gets this correct, and the teacher goes, "Yeah, great, bang on the money," and bang on the money. Where does that go? And another one I've had, it was a very English one. "Yeah, that's the bunny." And you can imagine the student going, looking on their smart, "Oh, where's the rabbit in this?" There's really, really just say, "Yes, that's great. Well done." Be really, really clear about that as well. That kind of external monologue, which comes from a nervous teacher, is a very, very common thing where they go, "Okay, right, what do we do here? Let's change the approach." Hang on, this is all stuff that the students are listening to and trying to process and trying to distinguish that from your CCQs, your listing, your ICQs, whatever it may be. They don't know. So keep it, if it's not relevant to the students, keep it buttoned. Don't say it. I mentioned that one. It's not part of this, but it's such a common mistake to make, especially among nervous being observed, as I said, and sometimes inexperienced teachers. Try, if you can, to drop it. Okay, we're going to now move on to concept checking. And as I said at the start, questions we can ask to check whether the students have understood. So in other words, they've got the answer at this time. What do? We then move forward We make sure that everybody that we try to get everybody to understand, rather than the one performer who has given you the answer. Do you understand? Now, I'm sure you understand why that's not a great way of asking, of working out whether people have understood, because you simply get nods, because people, of course, are there nodding furiously, going, please don't ask me to sort of, to elucidate on this. So if we move forward, again, concept check questions should be simple and ambiguous. Yes, but it doesn't mean that yes and no is the only response you've got. Grade your language for the reasons that I have already mentioned. And the concept check questions, yes, no questions, closed questions. Then, if necessary, you can ask for open-end questions or examples. So you can really start with one and then move on to the next. Sometimes that's not necessary. Sometimes you can go with a yes, no. It's something you think, yeah, they've got, that's okay, that's fine, let's move on. Again, efficiency is part of this. If you're trying to teach 12 items before they do a reading, you can do them all beautifully, but it might take you 60 minutes of a 60-minute lesson and they've got no time left to actually do the reading. You need to do this effectively and efficiently. And efficiency is always that idea of how do you compact the knowledge, the understanding, into a shorter period of time. So, of course, the open-end questions, the examples, are necessarily going to take longer, but if they've got to be done to make sure that they understand that, so that then they understand the listening, the receptive text, the listening or the reading, then great, you need to do that as well. There's nothing wrong with having those questions kind of in your mind or written down and then not using them if they are not necessary. It's a testimony to your own effectiveness as a teacher that you haven't needed to go through these. Okay, let's have a quick look at this. Do you get excited to go to a party? Again, I'm not too sure about that. I'd say get excited about going to a party, but hey ho. Yes, being excited is a great feeling. So is exciting a good thing? It's better than good. It's a great feeling. So you can tell, does this student understand it? Yes, the student absolutely does. When we know that something good is going to happen. And then what would you do? What do you get excited about? What's going to excite you? What's happening? You might even link it with something else. This is a great idea as well. That say maybe in the last lesson they did the past simple. So you could say, okay, when was the last time you were really excited? And then they can talk. You can develop something. There's a form of revision there, going back to what they did the previous week or whenever. Right. Have a look at these and decide what the issues are. Of course, they might not. Well, there's two forms with this, really, aren't there? You could say, is it something that they know or something they already that they don't know? If it's a CCQ, we assume that they know it. So that's the first issue. What animal is large and bites? It's a dinosaur. We know that. You've just taught us the word dinosaur. A very common CCQ that I see, particularly in assignment A, is people then asking for the word or the phrase that they've just taught. They've just learnt it. They don't need to repeat it. You need something else that works on this instead. Have you seen one? That might not actually be such a bad question, actually. I don't think it's a terrible question, because of course they can say, of course not, it's a dinosaur. So I don't think that's such a bad one. In a classroom situation, this might work fairly well. It would be one question among several, but nevertheless, it would work as long as it wasn't in isolation. Okay, a better CCQ. If anybody wants to try that, please put it down there and see what you've got. Okay. As we said, do not understand. In terms of instruction checking, it works the same. Asking students to repeat the instructions. This can work, but are they just going to repeat your words? This is a great one. What's the first thing you must do? How many questions must you answer? So get things again that aren't just yes, no. You're getting things where that you're actually getting them to show their understanding as well. So Sorry, I think I've more or less got this one. So other questions you could ask. Do you need to work with a partner, or do you need to work alone? One other thing about this that people do, a great thing that you can do, certainly if you've got, say, if you're doing a reading text and if you've got a reading text and you want them, say, to read it alone, and then you want them to compare their answers with a partner, that's a brilliant thing to do for a couple of reasons, and the ones that I write down in my marking quite often. That's great. Do you actually say that at the time? Probably not. Let them read it. Let them think about the questions, because of course reading is a solitary activity after all. And then after 5 minutes or 8 minutes or whenever you want, however long you've given them, then say, okay, now compare with a partner. If you say, okay, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do the reading, then you start working with a partner. People are half listening. Some people start off with a partner. Some people are reading alone. Some people don't know. The confusion. Keep the explanation very simple to what you need to do at that time. Give the next instruction when they need to do the next thing. Sometimes, of course, you need to go further forward, but if you can avoid it, try to do so. The other reason why something like that is a great idea for instruction checking, again, this is digression a little bit, is you've got your stronger students, you've got your weaker students. You want everybody to contribute. So if you've got something they need to work on, let them work together, gives them a chance to rehearse what they're going to say. They've got a chance to get some feedback as well from somebody else to make sure that somebody else understands what they're saying. And then, of course, when it comes to delivering it to class, great, because they've already had a chance and they can have far greater confidence with it. If you don't do that, if they're delivering it cold, then the weaker students tend to do a bad job of it. The stronger students jump in to correct, and you're kind of reinforcing negative, you're sort of hardening a negative structure of, okay, the strong student comes to the rescue of the weaker student. So think about getting them to work together. So things like that are really, really useful. And as you develop as a teacher, as you get more experience, you'll find yourself working out ways of doing this for yourself. But above all else, for instruction checking, it means keep the instructions immediate to what you need, and then check that they know what they need to do. And if they need to do something else in 10 minutes time or 5 minutes time, that's fine. Leave it until then to do it if you can. Okay, I think that is pretty much it. I'm going to just have a look through these as well. Be aware of your use of language, grade your language, keep it simple, keep it unambiguous. I think we've covered all of these. Plan your questions where possible. That is absolutely true. You will find, as a teacher, the most fun stuff that you'll do after a little while, it's terrifying when you start and then it's more fun as you go along, is what we call emergent language. And emergent language is the stuff that just comes out of the class. And so there'll be questions. If you've got a good, healthy class, people will stick their hands up. What about this? What about that? Now, it might be something in a reading text that you read the text and you didn't maybe identify as being something that was going to be a problem. So, boom, you've got to do it spontaneously. Or it simply might be something that's out of left field. You started off the lesson with something that happened. Asking them what happened at the weekend, and they know what happened at the weekend, but they can't quite express it. And so they're using a strategy to explain what happened. And then you've got the direct line, the direct A to B of, you can say, the best way of saying this is like that. You've got a great expression there. So again, sorry, I digress a little bit, but this is all worthwhile stuff. So plan your questions where possible, but always remain very much open to the fact that things are going to break that structure open. They're going to be outside of what you were expecting, and really start to embrace that, because it's so much fun to be thinking on your feet and going, right, great, okay. So that's it's kind of the mindset. There's really, I think, two kinds of preparation for this. One of them is obviously the nuts and bolts. What are the questions? What are the eliciting questions you're going to do? What are the CCQs you're going to do? And that goes obviously for the preparation of your whole lesson as well. That thoroughness goes through, but there's also that open-mindedness to, okay, what's the interesting thing here? If there's a student who's trying to say something, great, because that means they're interested in it. So how do we communicate that? How do we get this going so everybody benefits from it? And then and the good feeling that gets from somebody not saying it right, but getting the right way of saying it, benefiting the whole of the class, and the class really moves on because of that. So I think that's me just about done here. I have made an appalling mistake, which is I should have yeah, that's what I needed to do, and I'm going to try to do it now. I'm not sure that I can. I might have to go elsewhere to do it. I need to put down this SurveyMonkey, this SurveyMonkey link, and I'll put it in the comments in a second. While I'm doing that, if anybody has any questions, I would very much like to hear them. Again, questions are the most fun part of this, as all of the trainers and the markers agree as we do this. So questions, if we can, would be absolutely great. And while we're doing that, I will try to overcome my incompetence in not having looked at this in the first place and not having got the SurveyMonkey up there. Okay, just bringing it up now if I can. Okay, I do apologize for this. It's not very clever of me, but very much in keeping. Right, okay, just bringing it up here. And then I'll come back. Okay. Right, okay, and I'll just send that off. Any questions, please? Just having a look through what you've got here. I'm glad you like separating the sheep from the goats, Carmel. It's a very old expression, but most of mine are, so that's probably you're getting it the next time round. Any questions? Any comments? Okay. Well, while I'm waiting, I'll just repeat what I said at the start pretty much, which is this is, yes, you will be able to see it again. I will end broadcast, and it'll be, I believe it will be just placed onto YouTube fairly shortly. Yeah, so maybe I can go in and edit it and take out the ums and the ers and the hesitations as well, which will be useful. What I was going to say, sorry, Meg, I can't help you with whether your TEFL units will unlock automatically. Yeah, sorry, this is well, I'll take this one while we're at it. Thank you for that. What was I going to say about this? Yeah, just to say, to repeat to repeat the first part, this is just about the most interesting thing you'll do, and I hope I've communicated that a little bit. If I make it sound like it's very complicated, trust me, it isn't, because, as I said, the frame of mind that you get yourself into, where you're open to these things that you're looking forward to, is it's just about the most fun that you'll get, because there's the teaching of, yes, you're working your way through the teaching plan and you're doing everything that you need to do, etc., and you're keeping to the timings, and you're and you're setting the right things, and you're checking that they're okay, and you're following everything. And there's so much else that comes up, and all of the spontaneous stuff that you'll come up with, that all comes out from that comes from the elicitation, comes from the concept checking, comes from doing those spontaneously, because you never ever foresee anything. I honestly don't think, and I've probably taught a few lessons in 32 years, and I've never had a single lesson that has gone entirely to plan, or even frankly near to plan, because they just don't, because you're dealing with students, and students have their own ways of going off. And that's great, so long as it's all interesting, so long as they are interested. That's the way that it will go, go where it will sometime. And that's the best learning that they'll come up with, because that's the stuff that's led by the students. The students are saying, oh, okay, what about this, what about that? And what's relevant for one student will be relevant for many others as well. Okay, then. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you again soon. I believe I'm doing another one sometime, but I'm not entirely sure when. But it'd be very nice to I look forward very much to teaching again. Okay, thanks a lot then. And sorry, just as I'm going, somebody has just put in here. I'm just going to see if I can bring this up to show. Just as I was going, Ada, I'm very glad that you've come up with that. It's a really good question. If you pre-teach 10 to 12 vocab items, you have to elicit and concept check each of them. The point about that was, yes, you have to elicit them, because otherwise you're not pre-teaching them at all. If you think they're necessary for the understanding of a text, listening or reading, then yes, they have to all be pre-taught. Elicit and concept checked. Do you remember what I said about maybe something like holding up a picture? Holding up a picture, somebody says, "Oh, that's a," boom, everybody else nods. Fine, you move on. There's the efficiency level. So yes, at that point you might think, okay, you know what, the elicitation was sufficient. I don't need to go into this too much. There's always this kind of sliding scale with everything. It might be, yep, you can just elicit. You might elicit and then have one concept checking question. Bang, that's all good. And it might be that you need to stop and take a bit more time. And again, the wonderful thing about teaching here is that it's you responding to your audience, to your class, that you're thinking, okay, that one was nice and easy. I didn't expect that. Great. That gives us more time. Oh, hang on. This one's proving problematic. Right. Let's stop. Let's work with this one as well. And of course, along with this, you might have other parts of it as well. I mean, I've only mentioned sort of elicitation and concept checking, but remember what we talk about. I'm sure you've all seen in the course content: form, meaning, and pronunciation, or actually MFP, meaning, form, pronunciation. Think about those three. And so you might not just be thinking of where of what you need to do for that particular, for communicating the meaning. You might also be thinking, okay, right, let's hear what's coming back from them. If that sounds okay, that's great. If it doesn't sound okay, then right, that's an additional stop on the way, and let's make sure that we get, say, the right stress, the right stress syllable on a particular word before we move on. There might also be, of course, the idea of, the form, the part of speech. The spelling might be an issue for some of them. If you have a look at a word and think, you know what, that's, typical English spelling, that sounds nothing like the way it's written. So let's get it down on the board and make sure that's clear. There might also be, and for the form, there might be things like dependent prepositions. We did the word excited, and the teacher in the questioning mentioned excited about, but didn't actually follow up on about. Well, I'm excited about is a really big one. I would say, yeah, that's the word. That's the word really, really important. That's a word that's really important that goes along with excited about. And then you can also have the idea of the verb to be. It's an adjective here. It's used as an adjective. I am excited about. They might not always pick that up. Otherwise, you get I excited about, and they might think it's in the past. There's all sorts of ways that you don't maybe suspect that they might find it difficult. And that's why some of the time, yes, you have to stop and you have to think, okay, what can I do with this word? And there's other times when 5 seconds, bang, picture identified, and you move on. Okay, as normal, you ask a short question, you get a long answer. Apologies, my verbosity here. So I'm not sure what this one's about, but is this the word unambiguous? If you're asking about that, the word unambiguous. So I'm not sure quite what you're looking for here, but the word unambiguous simply means absolutely clear, absolutely defined. Yeah, sure. It means a totally clear word. So there's no complications between it. I've got an example from this, and I probably shouldn't be telling you this in assignment A. For instance, lots of people ask words. I don't know if you've seen assignment A, but you have all the different ones that you have to select 10 different vocab items. Now, I say a vocab item because it might be a word, or better still, it might be a phrase as well. There's lots of 2-3 word items that you can use there that are really, really good. People often do currency, which is a great word, really good word to teach, but they don't sufficiently make the distinction between the word currency and the word money. So that is where you have the ambiguity, and you need to remove the ambiguity by saying, okay, right, what's distinct between money and currency? How do you pull those two apart? If you've got several words that can take the place of that word, then you haven't done it well enough, and you need to go back in and take more time to concept check. Okay. If there's nothing else, I will ring off there, but thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. And like I say, I think it's just such a wonderful area to explore. As you can see, I can talk the hind legs of a donkey for this, but it's really worth it in the first place. It's such a great part, and it's kind of the sort of thing that makes you come out of a classroom and remind yourself why you decided you want to be a teacher. Okay, thank you very much, and hope to see you the next time as well. I've said that's the second time I've said goodbye, and now I've got another question that I'm going to show you. I think I don't know if you're all working together just to sort of like come out and give me a question just as I'm signing off. When planning a warmer stage for a lesson, how would you elicit questions from students without using the target language? If you go back to, we'll have a look at this here again. Sorry, I can't go back any better way than this. Okay, as it says here, yes, used to prompt students to come up with information rather than giving it to them. Okay, so let's have a quick look at these ones here. A warmer stage for a lesson, how would you elicit questions? So in a warmer stage, of course, is not where you come up with the target language. So then it's not really particularly a question. A warmer stage is where you're setting the scene and you're maybe working out what particular language that they know about, what language they know. So if you're talking about school, let's find out if they know about, classroom, pencil, whiteboard, teacher, whatever else it may be. But how to elicit questions without using the target. You don't elicit questions, how you use eliciting, how you use questions to elicit information without using it. Again, I'm not too sure how much to do with this one, but again, you've got a picture. A picture is a representation of the thing that you want to teach. So you hold up the picture rather than giving the giving the name of the object. If you're looking at a role play, you're acting out a particular word rather than telling them the word. If you give a description or a definition, you say, okay, does anybody know what this word is? This word is, because I just mentioned currency. So can anybody tell me what this word is? Now, this is the word for money, but it's the word for money all over the world. So it's a different money in one country to money in a different country. And so you often have to change your money because another country has a different money. So what's the word you use to talk about the different ones? Okay, a synonym, obviously, I said angry. That's a difficult one because, of course, a synonym might not work for angry because you might say furious. That's actually a higher level than what you've got in the first place. So you might go, really mad. I feel really, and then ask them to fill in the gap there. So this is how you would try to not use the word. And as I said, just to repeat, because I've said a lot to you, so it's worth repeating. If nobody knows it, that's fine. You've done enough. You've got them thinking about what the word is, even if they don't know it. It's okay just to give it to them sometimes as well. Not in your assignment, because your assignment is theoretical and imaginary. So I'd hope you wouldn't do that there. But yes, in reality, yes, it happens that you just give them the word if nobody's got it. Right. I'm going to try to say goodbye again. Thank you ever so much. Really enjoyed it. Great questions. I much appreciated them. And I hope to see you next time then. Okay. Goodbye.